Alright everybody, welcome back to another episode of Double C Outdoors. Today, as you can tell, I have no rods or baits in my hand, which is a little different when we're here. We're not talking about baits, we're not talking about how to fish them, when to fish them, depths to fish them, we're not talking about any of that. Today we're going to go over my two tournaments that are not able to film this. I had my first high school tournament of my senior year Saturday, and I had a shootout tournament I fished last Monday, a week ago yesterday. So we'll talk about them and how it all went, I guess, is good. So first, I guess we'll talk about the shootout tournament I fished, which I did not know I was going to fish until like a couple days before. Fished with an old basketball coach. We got third. There was only like 10 boats, so we did not get paid. But I mean, it was fun fishing on Dam B in Texas. So, yeah, it was a fun. It was a fun thing. We just couldn't get a big bite. We had 3 fish for like 5.5 pounds. But I would say it was fun. If I learned anything, it was you'd have to get a big bite on that lake to do anything, because there are some freaking giants in that lake, and it's real shallow, it's real small, but you got to get a big bite to win a tournament up there. So moving on to my first high school tournament, I actually had my camera, but forgot to put it on because there was a bunch of boats at the ramp, and I just forgot to put my chesty on. So that's why I didn't get to film any. But I got some pictures, so if everything works out well, I'll put them at the end of the video. So when everybody, I don't know if I have any out-of-state viewers, so I'm from Texas, if you didn't know that already. If you are out of state, the first thing that most people think of when you think of Texas, and specifically bass fishing in Lake Conroe, Texas, is, of course, the 2017 Bassmaster Classic. Jordan Lee caught like 27-10, I think, to win it on the last day. Coming from, I want to say, man, that was a long time. I was there. I forgot actually what place he came from. I want to say it was like 6th or 7th to win it. You know, he came from day one, I want to say it was in 35th place, but that was the greatest comeback of all time. But that's where our tournament was held. It was, today is September the 22nd, so early fall, Saturday, man, I've lost my whole train of thought, but, early fall transition, we have, we had found some fish out deep. We'd caught some fish out deep before the tournament, pre-fishing. We probably had 5 or 6 different brush piles we were hitting in a range anywhere between 16, or really not even that deep, 12 to 25 feet that we were hitting big brush piles. And when we found them, the fish were really schooled up, and I mean, it was 2-pounder after 3-pound. I mean, you were catching a bunch of fish, and it should have been real easy to catch them in the morning as they were coming up. And I could have caught them on top water, or even at like a 1.5 square bill. So the morning of the tournament, we had a little cool front come in, and it was about 64, 65 degrees. It was amazing. I even put on some wind pants because it was a little chilly running in my shorts. So come the morning of the tournament, we pulled up on a top water spot. It was a lighthouse. Actually, Kevin Van Dam jerkbaited. He fished a jerkbait on that during the 2017 Bassmaster Classic, and that's the only reason I knew of that spot. But we fished that spot. They were coming up, but they were eating little bitty shad, and I could not get any big fish to eat. I didn't even I got a couple slaps on the topwater Berkeley Chopo, but man, they would not eat it. I found some off a point in about 12 foot of water, and I drug a Cinco and a big worm through them, and they just wouldn't touch it. And swim bait through them, they just would not touch it. I think it was smaller fish. I couldn't tell. I could just see them on my 2D. But I don't know what they were. We did not catch any there. And heading after that, we said, man, we'll go to this deep spot. I think we can catch a few fish on it. We had ran to this spot, which was a huge brush pile. It was a big point. It was probably like a $3 million mansion, Lake Condo. And it was a big point, came out as 6 foot, and then there was a transition. It dropped off into 22, and there was a giant brush pile on it. And the fish had been schooled up there, and I was catching on a Berkeley 20.5 dredger and bone. I heard something. And that's how I was catching them. And I threw in there with I started off with Carolina rig because I would much rather catch them on Carolina rig or a big worm than I would a crankbait, just because I don't like to sit there and grind on the whole time. I started off with that and couldn't get bit, so I grabbed my crankbait, and I had seen them on the graph. They wasn't schooled up, they were kind of scattered. So I picked up a crankbait. I was throwing at first a 20.5 dredger, and I could not get bit. So I switched over to a bluegill colored 6XD and cranked, and still couldn't get bit. So after about 45 minutes on that hole, not a bite, I went shaky head. I threw Carolina rig with a trick worm on it, Carolina rig with a big worm, and a Carolina rig with a baby brush hog. I mean, man, I could not get bit. I threw a Berkeley power worm, 10-inch power worm through them, and I threw a Zumo monster worm through them. One watermelon red and one was plum, and they just would not eat it. I don't know if it's because they just wasn't schooled up. I even threw a big swim bait through them, and they would not eat it. So it was a little tough. So after that, we went up in a back of the cove that we were fishing. We were fishing the mouth of this cove, so we ran to the back, and we had found a huge brush pile. And later, come to find out what it was is it was an old dock, and it had fell in a big dock. I mean, like 3 or 4 boat bays, and they had just piled brush on it to make a giant brush pile, and it was up in about 17 foot of water. And I was throwing a bluegill colored 6XD. And about this time, it was probably 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning. And we pulled up, I put my trolling motor down, and there was an old submerged roadbed that went right through there. And I mean, it was perfect. There were fish there. I could see them on the unit. And I picked up the 6XD, and I side scanned over them, so I knew they were there. I was backed off of them a little bit, and I would throw it up. And after, I guess, about 3 casts, I threw a Carolina rig and a big worm through there several times. And I guess after about that 3rd cast, I picked up my bluegill 6XD and went to work. And I made 2 casts, I think, and I was pulling it up. I just got to the boat, and I was working it up. And I felt the thump. And I set the hook, and I thought it was a big one. And as I reeled him up, I fought him to the top. Dad netted it. It was a 3-pound catfish. Yeah, blue cat. And I did not foul hook him, let me tell you. He had the back treble hook in his mouth. I caught him. Needless to say, he went to the live well. And I put him in my pond afterwards. So, yeah. And then we kept fishing, could not get a bite. They were scattered on that spot too. They just would not eat it. And there was a crappie fisherman on that hole. He had probably done caught every crappie and a 12-pound bass off that hole before we got there. But Lord only knows. And man, we jumped around. We went and skipped docks. It was real windy. And there was, I want to say in our tournament alone, there was 136 boats. And there was a bunch of just, weekend guys out there and play. Conroe is a big recreational lake, and there were jet skiers, and there was one boat, probably 42-foot cigar boat, sounded like a freaking Harley Davidson came by, probably running 60. It was crazy, and there were partiers out there and stuff. So we got in the boat, we ran fish docks in the back of a cove. It was real calm. We pulled up. There was a team fishing this one dock, or fishing one side. So I went to the other, and I was skipping a Berkeley chigger crawl, a zoom speed crawl, and a hack attack half-ounce hack attack jig with a what do I even have on the back of that? I want to say I had there it is. I had a rage crawl on the back, and I was skipping it, and man, I didn't even have any bites on them docks. They were not. I don't know if they just wasn't there. I'm not really sure. They didn't get any bites on the docks. and I kept fishing, and there was an island, so I picked up a Berkeley 6.5 digger and threw it where the rocks, like the riprap and the sand met, and I caught a fish, reeled him in, put him on he was 14 inches. I got to be 16 in Conroe, so I threw him back. And man, really at that point, weigh-in was at 3. That was probably 11. We had to be off the water by 3. There was a guy sitting on our brush pile there catching fish after fish after fish on a big worm, and he never did leave. So we finished skipping the docks, and I said, "All right, let's just go back to the deep hole. It's sun. It's came out a little bit. Let's just see if they schooled up." We went back. They were still kind of scattered, but I insisted that we fish a little bit, and we fished 45 minutes. Nothing. So we were sitting there, and I said, "All right, let's go to these docks." And we pulled up to the first dock, and it was probably a freaking $6 million mansion. It was huge, giant dock. Picked up a little speed crawl, and I was skipping. I think it was a bite. I think it was probably a bluegill because he didn't really eat it like a bass did. My line didn't jump. I just picked it up, and it was, tick, 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 tick. It was either a small spotted bass or a crappie or bluegill. So nothing on the docks. We fished docks for 45 minutes. I probably fished 100 to 200 docks. Man, I fished a ton of docks. Not even a nibble. Even had a pontoon boat come by, and it was like they were spectating for about 30 minutes. But man, we did not even get a nibble off them docks. I don't know if he was just trying to find a place to fish and figured if we started catching him, he would fish the docks in front of us. But man, there was nothing. So we were Jordan Lee won the tournament, the 17 Classic, right under, I think it's the 1003 bridge. I would have to go on Google Earth or something to verify that, but I think it's called the 1003 bridge. If you're from around Conroe, you know what I'm talking about. Actually, I might just pull it up anyway because I don't like to be wrong. Where am I at? Livingston. There it is, Conroe. Bridge is that 1097. Okay, yeah. That is the 1097. Which one is this? That's the 13. Yeah, 1097. I'm not sure where I came with 1003. But we fished that bridge. I pulled up on it. I said, "Hey, let's go fish that bridge. If all else fails, I'll pick up a crankbait and just crank for the rest of the day. Shallow water crankbait, like a 6.5 or maybe even a 1.5. So I picked up a 1.5 and I started cranking that. And I'm talking about it. There was some people fishing that bridge. I guess I don't know if they were in the tournament or not. They were fishing it. It was a deep bridge, but they were fishing it with like a big worm, and they were going slow, man. I pulled up on the bridge, dropped my trolling motor, had it on like 8, and I was just slinging. I don't know, probably made 40, 50 casts. Got to them, pulled the trolling motor up, and if you know anything about Lake Conroe, it is bulkheads. Everything is bulkheads. There are barely any spots where the land and the water meet. And if you find those spots, that is a key spot to catch a fish because that's where the land and the water meet. There's maybe some grass there. It's just a perfect spot. He cranked up the big motor. I said, "We need to go right there. There's some grass." We pulled up. We ran. I don't know if the guys were mad or not. They were fishing too slow though, and I was gonna finish the rest of this. We were desperate. It was about 1 o'clock, and we had 2 hours to weigh in. So I pulled up, dropped the trolling motor, picked up a big jig at first, and flipped around the grass. No bites. So I picked up my square bill and slung it like 2 casts. And I was looking on avionics, and there was like a submerged railroad track. And I wasn't paying really attention to where I was near it. I threw, and I could feel it was like 2 foot of water, man. I could feel my crankbait just banging, and I made 2 casts, and I felt it. I was grinding, and I felt it just stop, and I was like, "Dang it, dude!" I got hung up again. I'd done broke off crankbaits and all kinds of stuff, and I was like, "Crap, dude!" I hung up again, and I pulled on it, just trying to get it off, pulled on it, and then it pulled back, and I was like, "Oh God, it's a fish. It's not a limb." And I pulled, and it pulled back, and I was like, "Hey, I got a big one." And my dad was like, "You're playing," and I I kept fighting him in, and I pulled him up where I said, dude, it's a big one. And my dad looked in the water, it was just a big shiny belly, and I was like, oh my God, it's an 8-pounder. And he grabbed the net, and I picked him up, and he netted, and he missed him, and the fish went under the boat. And when that happened, I pushed the whole rod in the water, and so he wouldn't break my rod, first of all, and to have enough slack to click my button to free spool him just a tad, where he could fight him a little bit. I had to turn my drag down real low, and I followed him back up. And when he came up, we netted him, put him in the bottom of the boat, and dude, I'm an over exaggerator, so I'm kind of like a Mike Iaconelli. If I catch a 5-pounder, that's an 8-pounder. So I was like, man, that's a 10-pounder right there. And I was like, after a little bit, I was like, man, he's probably not. He's probably 6 or 7 pounds. And legitimately, everybody thought he was a 7-pounder. He had a face of 7, and if everything goes right, there'll be a picture of him and the at the end of this video. So I was using a KVD 1.560 shad. I'm not sponsored by Strike King, but they have got me out of that crankbait has got me out of I don't know how many binds when it comes to fishing. These tournaments where you're fishing and you just ain't getting bites. It's something I feel confident I can pick up, throw, and catch a fish on at any time of the year. October, September, November, anytime I can catch a fish on that 1.5 square bill. But we netted him, put him in the box, and I had 2 hours to fish, and we fished and fished and fished. And after a little while, man, we were gonna make a run to the back of back to where the guy was fishing on brush pile. We were skipping docks. I was like, maybe we can catch another keeper off of it. All we needed was 4 more keepers. Little did we know that it was been a horrible day for everybody else too. The other 135 boats, but we were gonna run out there, but it was real rough, and we're like, hey, we don't want to risk, losing this fish. So we ran to the back of this creek and got stuck. Yes, we got stuck. We ran up in some mud. If we'd have stayed on plane, it'd have been good, but the water kind of changed. The color kind of changed, so we pulled it off plane, knew something was up, and we're in a foot of water. So we got out, fortunately, and I found some more spots with the grass and the land net, and started flipping a jig, flipped a shaky head around a little bit, and I flipped a crawl, and man, I just could not get bit. It was the perfect spot. Anywhere else I'd have caught fish off that, I just could not. So I flipped some pilings, flipped around, cranked a little bit, and we said, hey, let's go load the boat up. We got, 20 minutes till it's time to weigh in, or till we have to get off the water. Let's pull the boat up on the trailer and see if we can get up there and get weighed in and see how we do. So at this point, we got 1 fish. We're both thinking this fish is around 7 pounds. 6.5, 7 pounds. But little did we know when we had ran up in that mud that we had sucked mud up in the water pump in our Mercury. And if anybody knows anything about a motor, you have to have the little tattletale. That's what we call it, at least. The water spraying out of your motor, so there's water circulation in your motor to cool it down. So a 2-stroke motor doesn't really, they have to have water in it. We sucked some mud up so it was clogged, and we were idling. We didn't really pay attention to it. We were idling out, and an alarm went off on our boat. Thank God for those alarms, or we'd have burned our motor up. Turned around, realized it, shut it off. We were a quarter mile, maybe. I could see the ramp. It was right there. I put my trolling motor down, put it on 10, and just started letting her eat. I realized it was going a little slower than normal, but even with the wind to our back, we were going pretty quick, and I was like, man, it'll be all right. Trolling motor battery's just probably a little weak. Let's get up there and, get the boat loaded, and we'll be good. So we made it 200 yards, and the trolling motor batteries died. Just completely died. Nothing we could do about it. They died. I had to turn the trolling motor off, turn it back on, and I'd go another 10, 15 yards, and they would shut off again. There was a boat fishing. It was a high school boat. Don't know who it was, where they're from, what their boat number was, but they pulled up, and we're like, hey, man, could you drag us in the boat ramps? Not even a quarter mile at this point. We're like, hey man, could y'all pull us in? When y'all get done, could y'all just pull us in? And they're like, man, not today. We got 20 minutes left in this tournament, and we got to run to the other side of the lake. Well, if you know anything about Lake Conroe, from the dam to the upper end, running 65, you can be from one end to the other in about 15 minutes. Um, and we're mid lake, so from either point, you could be. I mean, if you're going to the upper end, it would take a little longer, but maybe uh, probably 7, 8 minutes to that one end. To the down, 4, 5 minutes. I mean, it's a real quick. Quick. They would not pull us in though, so we kept going. And there were some old men that came up, and they're like, "Hey," and we're like, "Hey man, could y'all pull us?" They tied on, pulled us right up there. And there were some people who helped us, got our boat loaded up. They're like, "How'd y'all do today?" I was like, "Man, we got one. He's a pretty good fish though." And they're like, "Good, good." So we got the boat loaded up, strapped down. We went to the weigh-in, and my mom was watching it on Facebook Live because we didn't. I think they allowed spectators, but our dog had just had puppies, and I mean they were like 12 hours old, so she didn't come. So they were watching it, and we had a mistake. They had watched the wrong one, and we went and weighed in. There were some people. We got our bag, put the fish in it. Some people said, "Hey man, y'all got any fish? Can we see your fish?" And I was like, "Sure," you know. I was right there by the boat. I reached in, pulled it out. They're like, "Man, that's a good fish. There's been a lot of good fish waiting today." I was like, "Well, I mean, I heard the big fish was like 605 or something." I was like, "Man, it's going to be close. I think we can take big fish." And every tournament I've ever fished, these high school tournaments, if you have a fish over 6 pounds, you're probably going to win big fish. Toledo last year, I want to say it was 7 pounds, but every tournament it was 6 pounds. I want to say one big fish. The regionals, a guy caught an 8 pounder, but that was the biggest fish all year long. And we went up there, and even the guy who he dumped your fish out, they make sure it's legal and everything. They were like, "Man, there's been so many good fish weighed in." There was a guy in front of me, man, and he had a big one. I was like, "God, dude, I mean, this fish is probably, he'll probably beat me for big fish." He weighed in 6'11", 6.11. We're not doing ounces. It's 6.11, so 6 pounds and that. I don't know. I think it's probably 6 pounds 2 ounces. It's somewhere right in there. I don't know how to convert that. I'm just throwing an oddball out there. But I went up to weigh in. My fish ended up weighing 5.05. Yes, it was a lot smaller than we thought. Realized it was a lot skinnier than we thought. But hey, I mean that put us in second place for big fish, and we were like, well, that actually put us second place overall. Nobody had weighed in more than one fish that we know of at that point. So I went back, took our pictures, and actually left because we thought they had not put up the actual score, the actual where everybody was at when it comes to places, and uh, we just left. It was like, man, there's no way. But we came, we a guy came in, weighed in right before we left, and there were 4 fish, and we're like, God, it's gonna knock us down even farther. So I mean, let's watch these guys leave, weigh in, then we'll leave. And they picked their bag up, and I remember looking at their bag and seeing a tail and a head. And I was like, oh my God, they got a giant. And they said, man, we got a fish, we want to weigh in for big fish. And they're like, all right, let's do that first, and then we'll weigh in and hold back. Well, he pulls this fish out, and I go, that's like a legitimate 8 to 10 pound bass. Like, that's a freaking giant. And they put him in the bag, put him on the scales. It is a 9.54, so a little over 9.5 pounder. I mean, it was a freaking monster. And I was like, holy crap, this is a giant. They put them all together, and they had a 20-pound bag with 4 fish. I want to say it was actually 19.7 something, 19 3/4 pounds, but still that is a giant bag for 4 fish. I don't care who you are, if you're Kevin Van Dam, Rick Clun, anybody, that's a big bag with 4 fish. But they ended up winning the tournament. We came back, realized that was actually the score, came back and got 20th place for 1 fish. Nobody weighed in a limit. in the whole tournament. First place was 20 pounds. Second place was, I think, about 12, and then it went down from there. But I'm gonna try to put some videos at the end of this video, which will be in a couple seconds. But I really thank y'all for watching. This is a long video. I really don't like dragging them out this long, but it is long. But thank you for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment for what you want me to do in the next video. I do make just fishing videos, go to local ponds, catch some fish, even sometimes when I go to the lake. But we may or may not have a FLW tournament this weekend, actually, September the 26th and the 27th. But I guess we'll find out. We will have Lake Somerville coming up pretty soon, October the 10th. But before that, there ought to be some hunting videos coming up. Yes, it is almost deer season, a week away from October the 3rd, which is opening day of bow season. Man, I cannot wait. So there'll be some hunting videos coming up, some more fishing videos coming up. And man, just like, subscribe, leave a comment, and see you guys in the next video.